Good morning and welcome into your February 2nd episode of Hoops Talk with Dave. I'm your host, Dave Smith. Thank you for joining us here on this Sunday morning. And hey, if you have not heard yet, we'll go ahead and start with the breaking news. Luka Doncic traded from Dallas to Los Angeles to the Lakers. Anthony Davis traded back to the Dallas Mavericks. And that, of course, is a massive NBA deal. So massive that I brought you an emergency episode early this morning, very early this morning. So if you have not had a chance to check that episode out yet, be sure to go back and check that one out as soon as you get done getting a full college basketball recap of your Saturday, as well as previewing a couple of games on the slate for Sunday. And we'll also touch on some NBA trade deadline headlines at the end of today's episode. But first, starting off in Houston, the Cougars losing to Texas Tech in overtime. This is a massive, massive win for the Red Raiders of Texas Tech. They were once a bubble team not too long ago. Not anymore. They've really solidified themselves in the field here. A big-time comeback for the Red Raiders. A massive win in overtime for them on the road in Houston as well. Jawan Roberts committing a turnover in the final seconds of overtime as Houston had a chance to take the lead and win the game. 2 free throws from Chance McMillan gave Texas Tech the win. In Oxford, the Ole Miss Rebels playing host to the number 1 team in the nation, the Auburn Tigers. Janai Broome behind 20 points and 12 rebounds, getting the road win there by 10. This was a fun one down the stretch. Auburn pulled ahead late, made it look a little better than it actually was. It was a tight contest throughout. Nonetheless, Auburn winning 92-82. Over in Knoxville, the Tennessee Volunteers down 2 starters. Does not matter. Winning 64-44 over the electric Florida Gators. Florida held to their season low in points, only scoring 21 in the first half and 23 in the second half. Tennessee put up 40 in the second half to lead them to a 20-point victory, 64-44. In Starkville, another top 25 contest going the way of the road team. The Missouri Tigers dominating the Mississippi State Bulldogs, 88-60. Caleb Grill shooting 6 of 11 from 3, scoring 20 points there. Josh Hubbard had 24 points for the Bulldogs. Missouri, they were up from start to finish. This game, terrific for the Mizzou Tigers. They look like a real powerhouse in the SEC. This is another win, just showing how much in the right direction they are headed, how well Dennis Gates has this program looking. It's outstanding for the Missouri Tigers to look like this. Mississippi State now losing 5 of their last 7 games. They are trending in the wrong direction, kind of down to that 6 or 7 seed line now. They'll look to bounce back next Saturday at Georgia. Staying in the SEC, Arkansas kind of having a down year so far, especially below expectations for the first year under head coach John Calipari. But this is a fun one right here. Arkansas on the road into Rupp Arena. That's right, the return of Cal. And Cal wins this one. A big-time win for the Arkansas Razorbacks to kind of get them back in that bubble conversation for them there. Kentucky losing 79-89. The Razorbacks get a much-needed big-time win here. Over in Durham, the best rivalry in the sport, Duke and UNC. Nothing competitive about this one, though. Duke wins by 17, 87-70. Duke was up a lot at halftime. They were up 47-25 at half and never looked back, winning this one once again 87-70. In the Big East, a big-time, much-needed win for the UConn Huskies, upsetting number 9 Marquette. The Golden Eagles going down on their home floor to UConn. Dan Hurley getting his team looking right there. They've got a fun one coming up on Friday against St. John's. And speaking of St. John's, they survived against Providence. The Friars giving St. John's all they could handle. The Red Storm winning 68-66, defending their home court. They now sit at 19-3 and look like one of the best teams in the country, led by head coach Rick Pitino. We know how famous he is. We know how good of a coach he is. He's got this St. John's team looking like they're ready to compete for a national title. Over into the Big 12, the Iowa State Cyclones hosting the Kansas State Wildcats, and talk about a stunner here. This is the most shocking result of the day. Kansas State 80, Iowa State 61. The presumably number 1 seed Iowa State Cyclones losing a quad 3 game at home to the Kansas State Wildcats, who still have a below 500 record, behind 20 points from Doug McDaniel to lead 5 players in double figures as Kansas State getting their biggest win of the season. Now, this was a team that went really deep in the tournament not long ago, but this Kansas State team has looked nothing like that one. Iowa State, that's going to be a really tough one to recover from if they want to become a 1 seed in March Madness. But got to give credit where credit is due, and Kansas State has earned the credit in that one. Great one for them. Another great one here out in Southern Cal. USC hosting number 7 ranked Michigan State as USC puts a big stop to the win streak that Michigan State had going there, that Tom Izzo and Michigan State had going there. 19 from Desmond Claude to lead the way for the Trojans. USC defends their home court 70-64. And over in the ACC, the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets playing host to the Louisville Cardinals. Louisville, ranked number 21 in the nation, comes into this one. They were favored in the rest of their games on the season. We all knew it was just so tough to win every game for the rest of the season. They had won 10 straight coming into this one, and they lose in Atlanta. Georgia Tech wins 77-70. And speaking of defending your home floor, talk about a chaotic one in this one. The Baylor Bears winning 81-70, but that doesn't tell the whole story here. Kansas was up by 21 in the first half. They were up 19 points at halftime. Baylor wins the second half by 30. Yes, you heard that right. Baylor scored 21 points in total in the first half. They scored 60 in the second half, 60 points to outscore Kansas 60-30 in the second half and win the game 81-70. A chaotic one there in the Big 12. A couple more quick results here in the SEC. Alabama playing host to Georgia, winning 90-69. This Alabama offense looking tremendous. Mark Sears getting into rhythm now. Got to watch out for that team, especially when Mark Sears is playing the way he is playing. It is a chaotic team to stop. Very tough, especially when they play defense like this. A really good Georgia team getting held only to 69 points, and that's low against Alabama. That's high against some teams like Tennessee, but not against Alabama. That's below average for them. Alabama cracking down on defense there. Over into South Carolina, the Gamecocks playing host to Texas A&M. This was a tight one down the stretch, but nonetheless, Wade Taylor leading the way with 25 points to lead the Aggies to a 76-72 victory on the road for them. South Carolina remains winless in SEC play. And defending your home floor here in Norman, Oklahoma, playing host to the number 24 ranked Vanderbilt Commodores. Vanderbilt had picked up some great wins here recently, and they were looking like they were on their way to do so there. They were up 40-36 at halftime. They had led by double figures for most of the first half, but once again, a big second half here. This is kind of the story of your Saturday, a big second half. Oklahoma, the Sooners outscore the Commodores 61-27 in the second half. You heard that right. 61-27, outscoring them by 34 points in the second half to win the game 97-67. A massive whopping there in Norman. Out west, this one's always kind of dubbed the game of the year in the West Coast Conference between St. Mary's and Gonzaga. This was a late one starting at 11 p.m. Eastern last night. Gonzaga came in as a 2.5-point road favorite. St. Mary's hadn't lost a game in the WCC, and they still don't. They moved to 20-3 on the year, picking up a 62-58 win over the Gonzaga Bulldogs. And Gonzaga, led by Mark Few, not looking quite as good as they have in recent years past. Of course, they're not in any kind of contention for a top 4 seed. This Gonzaga team would have been a big win there to get on the road at St. Mary's to try to right the ship here. Not looking great recently. St. Mary's winning 62-58. They are the best team in the West Coast Conference this year. And hitting on a couple of ranked teams in action today. Number 18, Illinois playing host to Ohio State. 13-8 Ohio State here, traveling to Illinois. This one at 1 p.m. Eastern on CBS. The Illini sitting as 5.5-point favorites in this one. And the second best game of the day today, staying in the Big Ten. Oregon hosting Nebraska, 16-5 Oregon on the year, kind of coming off a chaotic defeat there. Nobody really expected them to lose the way they lost earlier this week, but they did. They're looking to bounce back at home. This one at 7:30 p.m. Eastern on the Big Ten Network. Nebraska coming off a massive overtime win as they head into Eugene. Oregon, the Ducks, 6.5-point favorites in this one. And the other ranked team in action today, the Memphis Tigers, heading on the road to take on Rice. 11-10 Rice on the year. Memphis, 9.5-point favorites. And it's been kind of a trend throughout the American Conference as Memphis has gone this year. They sit 17-4. They've got some great wins, ranked number 19, but they've kind of started slow in a lot of these games. A lot of these games have been closer than most people have thought, and I think that's why this game is only a 9.5-point spread versus being a much larger number. But the Tigers will be looking to get a great win there. And the final game I want to touch on here over in the Big 12. Big-time bubble implications here between West Virginia and Cincinnati. The Bearcats, 5.5-point home favorites against the Mountaineers. This one at 2 p.m. Eastern on ESPN+. And over in the NBA, we got some great games on paper here. May not be quite as good, especially with the trade news coming in from last night. The Dallas Mavericks travel to Cleveland to take on the Cleveland Cavaliers. Cleveland sitting at 13.5-point favorites there. I expect Cleveland to take care of business as they should. That one, once again, on NBA League Pass at 3:30 p.m. Eastern. And a doubleheader on ESPN tonight. Of course, we have no NFL in action here, sitting 1 week away from the Super Bowl. So we've got two great NBA games. Boston on the road at Philly. This one, 6 o'clock Eastern on ESPN. The Celtics sitting as a 10.5-point road favorite. And over into Milwaukee, this one, 8:30 p.m. Eastern on ESPN. Memphis, the Grizzlies, taking on the Milwaukee Bucks as we travel across conferences here. The Bucks sitting as 3.5-point home favorites. And we can expect no shortage of drama in the NBA this week. We're sitting now just about 4 days away from the NBA trade deadline. We, of course, just had the biggest trade that I can ever think of in NBA history happening last night. Once again, if you have not checked out my emergency episode on that, it's a short listen, a quick listen, get you some reaction from me, as well as some great tweets from across the NBA. Luka to LA after taking the Dallas Mavericks to the NBA Finals. Anthony Davis, LeBron's sidekick, moving back to Dallas now to pair up Kyrie and Anthony Davis in Dallas, Luka and LeBron in LA. Be sure to check out that episode. You should see it right below this one. And there are plenty of big names that are expected to be on the move, headlined by Miami Heat superstar Jimmy Butler. This has been a fun one to watch kind of off the court, kind of watch it unfold between Pat Riley and Jimmy Butler. He was expected to be the headline coming into NBA trade deadline talks. Now we know that is no longer, but still, wherever he ends up going, as we widely expect him to be moved somewhere, will be kind of one of the bigger trades in NBA in recent history. But there are a couple of other big names that are expected to be on the move here. Chicago, you've got Zach LaVine expected to be on the move. Sacramento, you've got De'Aaron Fox expected to be on the move. Phoenix has kind of floated that idea of Bradley Beal being on the move. They feel like they need to do something because they've got this core here as they continue to get older, especially Kevin Durant, that really is in win-now mode, but is not putting up win-now results. They sit at 25-23 on the season. That's not what you expect out of a team to be competed for titles. They've got to find something to do there. There's a lot of teams that are kind of right on that cusp of competing that need to make a big-time move here. The Lakers, they jumped all the way up to 5th in championship odds overnight after adding one of the great young superstars in this game. It's going to be a fun NBA trade deadline week, everybody. Thank you for joining us here on your Sunday. I'm your host, Dave Smith. I'll be back with you tomorrow morning to get your week started on your Monday morning. Unless we have some more NBA trade deadline news, then I'll jump in for an emergency episode just like I did last night. Thank you for joining us here on Hoops Talk with Dave.